Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Today, I'd like to try shadowing using this video, system design how to store passwords in the database, made by Byte2Go. Yesterday, I'm focusing on, I focused on uh, understanding the each sentence meaning in the half first section. So today, focusing on mm, shadowing and reading aloud, focusing on pronunciation and listening. So let's dive right in. Oh, very big.
How do we store passwords safely in the database? How do we validate a password a user enters against what we store in the database? Let's take a look. It is essential to store passwords in a way that keeps an attacker from getting
Even
them,
that from
even if
getting
the
them,
database is
but it is
compromised.
compromise.
Let's talk about what
Let's
not to
talk
do
about
first.
what to do first.
Do not store
Do not
passwords in
store
plain text.
passwords in plain
Anyone
text.
with internal
And
access to the database can see them.
I forgot to start stopwatch. Maybe today's practice is only 20 minutes. So 20 minutes. Start. Okay.
If the database is compromised, an
Compromise.
attacker could easily get all the passwords.
Compromise. Compromise mean what does that mean? What does the compromise mean? It is mm, uh almost broken, not safety in system security terms. Next.
So what should we do to safely store
What
password in the
is
database?
in the
The Open
database?
Web Application
Open Web
Security
Application
Project,
Security
also known as
Project, also
OWASP,
OWASP,
provided some guidelines
provide
on
some
how to store
guideline how to
passwords.
store
Here
passwords.
are the
Here is
recommendations.
a recommendation.
First, use
First,
a modern hashing
using
algorithm.
modern hashing
Hashing is a
algorithm.
one-way
Hashing is a
function. It
one-way
is
function.
impossible to
It is
decrypt a
impossible to
hash to
decrypt
obtain the
hash,
original value.
obtains original
If an
value.
attacker
Even the
obtains the
attacker
hash to
obtains the
password,
hash to
they cannot
password.
just enter
They
it into
cannot
the
enter
application to
into
gain
the
access.
application gain access.
It is important to
It
use
is
a modern
important using
hashing function
modern hash
designed to securely
function
store
securely
passwords.
store
These are
passwords.
sometimes
These are
characterized as
sometimes
slow
characterized
functions
as slow
that use
functions
more resources
that
to
use
compute.
more
This
resources to
makes brute
compute.
force attacks
This makes brute
unattractive.
force attacks
There's some
attractive.
common legacy
Let's
hashing
add some
function like
common legacy
MD5 and
hashing function
SHA-1
like
are
MD5 and
fast. They are
SHA-1
less
are fast.
secure and should
They are
not be
secure,
used.
mm,
Second,
should
salt the
not be used.
passwords. According to
Sort
the
passwords.
OWASP guidelines,
ASP
a salt is a
guidelines.
unique, randomly
Sort
generated
is
string
unique randomly
that is
generated
added to each
string,
password as a
each
part of the
as
hashing
each part
process.
of the hashing process.
Why do we need to sort the
Why do we
password at
need
all?
the password
Well,
or
storing a password
storing
as a
a
one-way
password
hash is a
by
step in the right
hash,
direction,
right
but it is
direction,
not
but
sufficient.
it is not
An attacker
sufficient.
can defeat one-way
Attack
hashes
with
with
one-way hashes,
precomputation attacks.
precomputation tasks. Okay. Hmm. Yesterday's yesterday's part is until here. Okay. I want to read aloud one time. How do we store passwords safely in the database? How do we invalidate a password a user enters against what we store in the database? Let's take a look. It is essential to store passwords in a way that keeps an attacker from getting them, even if the database is compromised. Let's talk about what not to do first. Do not store passwords in plain text. Anyone with internal access to the database can see them. If the database is compromised, an attacker could easily get all the passwords. So what should we do safely store passwords in the database? The Open Web Application Security Project, also known as OWASP, provided some guidelines on how to store passwords. Here are the recommendations. First, use a modern hashing algorithm. Hashing is a one-way function. It is impossible to decrypt a hash to obtain the original value. If an attacker obtains the hashed password, they cannot just enter it into the application to gain access. It is important to use a modern hashing function designed to securely store passwords. These are sometimes characterized as slow functions that use more resources to compute. This makes brute force attacks unattractive. Note that some common legacy hashing functions like MD5 and SHA-1 are first. They are less secure and should not be used. Second, sort the password. According to OWASP guidelines, a sort is unique, randomly generated string that is added to each password as a part of the hashing process. Why do we need to sort the password at all? Storing a password as a one-way hash is a step in the right direction, but it is not sufficient. An attacker can defeat one-way hashes with precomputation attacks. Okay, one more time. So let's shadowing, let's overlapping. Ah, okay. And hmm, if if we share this video sound, hmm, you feel you may feel mm, very noisy because the video sound you can listen video sounds and my voice. So check off share sound off. Okay. How do we store passwords safely in the database? How do we validate password in the user entered store database? Let's take a look. It is essential to store passwords in the ways that keep attack from getting them, even if they're compromised. Let's talk about one not to do first. Do not store password in plain text. Anyone cannot access database if database is compromised and attack easily get all passwords. What should we do safely store password in database? Open Web App Application Security Project, also OWASP, provided some guidelines how to store passwords. Here are the recommendation. First, use modern hashing algorithm. Hashing is a one-way function. It's impossible to decrypt a hash obtains original value. If an attacker obtains a hash password, they cannot just enter an application gain access. It is important to using modern hashing function design security store passwords. This some characterized slow function. They use more compute. This makes brute force attack unattractive. Look at some common legacy MD5 SHA-1 are first. They are less secure and should not be used. Second, sort the password. So according to the old AWS guidelines, this randomly generated string that it has passed to hashing process. Why do we need oh storing a password say one way first? Establish this is not sufficient. An attacker defeat one-way hashes Precomputation attacks. うん。うーん。I'm not good at, うーん、maybe this. うん。このあたりってなんて言うんだ？はい、チャット GPT。この YouTube の動画のこのあたりの部分が英語で聞き取りづらいんだよねって言いたいとき。うん、なんかこのパートっていうよりかは、ここら辺っていうちょっとアバウトな感じが伝わるといいんだけど、なるほど。This section around here in the video is kind of hard for me to catch in English. うん。around here, it's hard to catch it's hard to catch in English. It's hard to catch in English around this part, around here. These are sometimes characterized through functions. They are used for, one more time, through functions that use more resources compute, that use more resources to compute. They are sometimes characterized as through functions. These are sometimes characterized as through functions that use more resources to compute. うーん to obtain the origin. Around here, I'm not good at listening. Obtains original value. It is impossible to decrypt a hash to obtain the original value. Ibn Dakar, even an if an, he said, even attacker obtains the hash password. They cannot just enter it into the application to gain access. It is important to using modern hashing function designed to securely store passwords. It is important to use the modern hashing functions designed to securely store passwords. These are sometimes characterized as slow functions that use more resources to compute. This makes brute force attack and attractive. Look at the some one more time. Look look at some common legacy attractive. Look at some common legacy hashing function MD5 and SHA-1 are first. They are less secure and should not be used. Second, solve the password. According to the OWASP guidelines, the sole unique random each one more time, is so unique random random generate guidelines is so unique randomly generatory string guidelines. It's so a sort is unique guideline. A sort is unique random generated string that is added to one more time. That is each general string that is added to each password as a part of the hashing process. Why do we need to sort the password or why do we need to sort the password at all? At all? at all. Why do we need to solve the password at all? Why do we need to solve the password at all? Why do we need to solve the Why do we need to solve the password at all? Why do we need to solve the password at all? Generate string that is added to each password as string that is added to each password as a part of hashing process. Why do we need to sort the password at all? Storing a password 表 at all or storing a password as a one-way hash. A storing a storing storing a password as a one-way hash. Storing a password as a one-way hash is a step in not establish is a step in the one-way hash is a step in the right direction is a step in the right direction. Storing a password as a one-way hash Storing a password as a one-way hash is a step in the right direction, but it is not sufficient. An attacker can defeat one-way hashes with precomputation attacks. Mm. Storing a password as a one-way hash. Storing a password as a one-way hash is a step in the right direction, but it is not sufficient. Ah, I got it. Makes sense. Okay. Uh, Now, three times I read aloud or shadowing, overlapping. Okay, one more time. Minimum five times I'd like to try. Okay, let's. How do we store passwords in Savory database? How do we validate password using against one more time? How do we validate the password? A user enter against it where what we validate the password user enter against what we store in database. Let's take a look. It is essential. Store passwords in the way keeps the attacker from getting them, even the data compromised. Let's talk about what not to do first. Do not store passwords in plain text. Anyone in internal database model. attacker getting them, even if database compromised. Let's talk about one not to do first. Do not store password in plain text. Anyone? Hmm? Anyone with internal access plain text. Anyone with internal access to the database can see them. Internal access to database can see them. If a database are compromised, if a database is compromised, an attacker compromised. An attacker can easily get all the passwords. So what should we do? So what should we do safely easily get all passwords? So what should we do safely? So what should we do to safely store So what should we do to safely store passwords in the database? Open Web Application Security Project, also known as OWASP, provided some guidelines how to store passwords. Here are the recommendations. First, using modern hashing algorithm. Hashing is a one-way function. It is impossible to decrypt hash to obtain the original value. Even an attacker obtains a hash or password. They cannot enter it into the model. They cannot just enter it into the application gain access. It is important to use a modern hashing function designed to securely store passwords. These are sometimes characterized slow function. They use more resources to compute it. This is brute force attack attract compute. This makes brute force attack and attractive. This makes brute force attack attractive. This makes brute force attacks attractive. Resources to compute. This makes brute force attacks attractive. Look at the some common legacy function MD5 and SHA-1 are first. They are less secure, should not be used. Second, sort the passwords. According to the OWASP guidelines, a so unique randomly generated string that is added randomly generated string that is added to each pass as part of that is added to each password as a part of hashing process. Why do we need to sort the passwords or storing a password as a one-way hash is a step in the right direction, but it is not sufficient. The technique one-way hashing is precomputation attacks. Mm. An attacker can defeat one-way hashes with precomputation attacks. Mm. Okay, one more time. Wow, time up. Okay, uh, last try. Last. How do we store passwords safely in the database? How do we validate passwords in the user and guess what? The storing database. Let's take a look. It is essential. Let's take a look. It is essential to store passwords in the way to keep getting them, even if the database compromised. Let's talk about what not to do first. Do not store passwords in plain text. Anyone with internal access to the database can see them. If database is compromised, an attacker easily can get our passwords. So what should we do safely password in database? Open Web Application Security Project, also known as OWASP, provided some guidelines how to store passwords. Here are the recommendations. First, using modern hashing algorithm. Hashing is a one-way function. It is impossible to decrypt hash to obtain the original value. Even an attacker obtains a hash password, they cannot just enter it into the application looking access. It is important to use a modern hashing function designed to securely store passwords. These are sometimes characterized slow functions. They use more resources to compute. This makes brute force attacks attractive. Look at some common legacy hashing functions like MD5 SHA-1 first. They are less secure and should not be used. Second, sort the password. According to the OWASP guidelines, a short, unique, randomly generated string that is added to each password as part of the hashing process. Why do we need to solve the password arrow? Storing a password one-way hash is a step in the right direction, but it is not sufficient. An attacker defeat one-way hash precomputation attacks. Mm. Okay, let's wrap up today's practice. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. See you by later tomorrow.